Hello everyone, this is Mili Saha. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm an associate professor of English at Jagannath University here. As you know, my today's presentation topic is transforming English language education in rural Bangladesh, teacher agency and power matter. So I wanted to investigate how rural English language teachers, power and agency influence their transforming pedagogies or their transformative practices of English language teaching pedagogies. So my today's agenda include theoretical underpinning, my positionality as a researcher, and the methodology that I used, and the findings I had, and the recommendations that my participants had. So to look at the theory a bit, I want to focus on the comparison between contemplative versus transformative teaching approaches. As I found with the rural teachers in my country in another research, that the contemplative teaching approach in SLA is a learning philosophy that provides knowledge with feelings of empathy, awareness, and insights through practices. The process aims at aiding love, compassion, and wisdom to the learners' lives in meaningful ways. So they had this. So I wanted to check if they are really transformative as a pedagogic practitioner or not. So the transformative approach that we need to know refers to making differences and growth in students' objectives, creativity, and focused participation in forming individual identity construction as learners. And it is an instructional result referring to a profound and long-term change in the worldview with a developmental shift. So this is more student-centered and constructive since it involves dialogical method, active learning, collaborative learning, or experiential learning and problem-based learning. So to look at dialogical method in learning is teaching is not merely transferring knowledge and explaining reality. It assumes that without dialogue, there is no communication, and without communication, there can be no education. So discussions, critical reflections, and praxis are fundamental elements to this critical pedagogy. And active learning also involves here that the students writing, discussion, and engaging in the problem-solving task, and that maximizes their potential for intellectual development through engaging higher order cognitive activities like analysis, evaluation, and synthesis, along with their peer scaffolding and the assistance that they receive in the classroom. The most frequently considered approaches at the pedagogical level of transformative approaches include collaborative learning, experiential learning, and problem-based learning. And this helps the learner to restructure their understanding and existing experiences of the course content and solving problems through hands-on activities and peer scaffolding. And this is a clear contrast with lecture-based teaching, and a more collaboration involves and to increase the learner's responsibility and learning experiences, positive learning experiences in others. So transformative teaching contrasts to the typical assimilative education, as we see, which is simply transmitting further information, fitting to learners' existing knowledge structures. But transformation, on the other hand, is a result of activating learners' questioning and criticality and their assumptions, and through they examine the alternative ideas and develop it being in a group or pair. So my research also connected the sustainable development goals and English pedagogies in Bangladesh because transformation is needed for raising learners' communicative competence and real life language usage, which is quite connected to their objectives of learning English apparently at the national level. So sustainability is deeply connected with terminating the culture of silence prevailing among the disadvantaged societies and facilitating collaborative learning to promote durable socioeconomic transformation. So we need English to learn how to communicate globally for particular purposes of employment, higher education, or global movement. So sustainable development goes to localizing the pedagogical spaces for national development priorities, involves all technical, scientific, and administrative and political efforts. So this is educational efforts that we, the teachers, are making the rural practitioners aware about their transformation. And in another research, I found our learner style, discrete grammar, and passage teaching reduces the sense of global communication and language as a whole. And they want to achieve balanced bilingualism through communicating more extensively than the teachers. They need to discuss with peers more than the teachers talk. And we need our own spaces to talk and learn in English, while teachers need to use Bangla for specific purposes. So for my research, I used a mixed method framework where the participants were 100 rural EFL teachers. They were surveyed using an original questionnaire about their pedagogical choices and the practices that connect the transformative pedagogies. And I also interviewed them using a semi-structured form online, and these were recorded for analysis. And I analyzed the quantitative data statistically, while the qualitative data thematically using content analysis and following the ground theory method, and use the structure of paired and research. So the research questions include what are the pedagogic practices Bangladeshi English teachers follow to transform the rural pedagogies? And secondly, I wanted to check what are the challenges that the rural school teachers confront to transform language teaching pedagogies in Bangladesh. And finally, I wanted to know how do the success about overcoming these barriers to create a meaningful active learning. So to look at the quantitative findings about teachers' pedagogic practices, we see Bangladeshi English teachers' educational choices and practices are diverse. As in figure 1, slightly more than half of the teachers, like 60%, agree that students learn English as a language, while 28.7% disagree about it. And around 11% of the teachers are confused if the learners learn to use the language instead of learning about it, including grammar and vocabulary learning. So whether they learn about communicating or they learn to communicate is still in question by around 40% teachers. So this is not, much small group. And then a large group of 63.3% teachers only teach throughout the class. They do not use many student activities, or they do not let the students participate inside the classroom so frequently or for maximum time. So while only 27.8% include other activities, and however a few of 8.9% is also unsure about it. So they might be negative too. And adding to the non-user group and make it even larger than our expectations. So around 94% of participants can create enough student-teacher interactions in the language class. Also, approximately 84% of respondents use technology and student works in language teaching, while 16% are either negative or unsure. So this is good. A majority, a large group of the teachers use student interactions and technology. So both of these have much contribute in transforming the pedagogies, as I see. And finally, 70% of the teachers agree that their students learn both communications and grammar simultaneously. I need further research about that, because when we went to them for interview or for qualitative data, they had some different expressions and some different thoughts. Although 29.7% reject it or do not know, so they're unsure. So to see the relationship between the variables and their pedagogic practices, we find the statistical analysis and the tables here, as the table of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 shows. Teachers' gender, experience, training, or urban living experience have no impact on their pedagogical practices, including teachers' expectations, interactions, and achievements, which are usually impacted by their attitudes. However, their education has a substantial correlation to the teachers' pedagogic expectations about whether the learners learn English to use or its properties. As we see, the correlation value is less than 0.05. And teachers having English studies background manage more teacher-student interactions in their class. So previous training, pre-service training of the teachers have a good impact, a considerable impact on their pedagogical choices, and particularly which aligns with the transformative pedagogies. And also they utilize more technology and student works in language teaching than those who did not study English as a pre-service education. So I believe their previous learning experience creates the differences among their between their choices and among the teachers. To look at the qualitative findings from the interviews, we see the rural school teacher participant 1 says fewer than 5% of teachers are supposed to know about interactive teaching modes and their usage. On the other hand, the extremely low language proficiency of the rural learners is the worst barrier to transformative learning practices. And he said only those who study the lessons regularly at home can participate in the transformative pedagogies, while others remain idle. So I use it very seldom. This is also true about teaching speaking or communications. In some cases, non-trained and non-language teachers' language proficiency also matters. However, the policymakers or school boards never promote the necessity of speaking or listening. I mean, they do not have any pressure from them, although main focus is on literacy only, and transformation is not frequently suggested, although very recently they have been aware about it. And it is complicated to utilize interactive modes or knowledge construction here in the small schools, because they do have some environmental issues involved in that. So we decide different activities, but we do not know this is transformation, theoretical knowledge gap. And we have 35 students in each class who have different proficiency levels. The weaker students usually sit at the back and they are lagged for continuous withdrawal. If I could let them sit and arrange in a mixed group, it would be effective with peer assistance and scaffolding. So there is some limitations in the room setting too. The second rural school teacher participant says she practices communicative second language teaching through a competency-based novel that she acquired while receiving in-service training. And she says, I use group and pair works and try to ascertain learners' strengths and weaknesses in the class. She uses short composition, freehand writing, homeworks, feedbacks that are decided according to the learner's needs. But I didn't know this is transforming or interactive teaching and constructions. So they have to know that they need to transform and why this is necessary and how could they do this. So she is also concerned with teaching the text comprising language and grammar elements provided by the National Curriculum Board, because there is a pressure that you have to finish the curricula, since she can allow collaborative learning sporadically. Learner initiative in choosing and constructing learning is quite impossible, since sometimes they cannot even solve the given problems which were done earlier ones. The classrooms have inadequate technology supplies, including audiovisuals, multimedia, and internet, to make the class less transmissive, reducing teacher stress. So she talks about the essentiality of training to change traditional practices to a transformational one, especially those who have not received any specialized pre-service training. So we already found in quantitative data that pre-service training is really necessary to make the transformation possible. And the local teacher education programs should address this immediately. So to meet the requirement of SDGs target. So teachers need to make the learners think about the lesson and share with the teacher about the problems. Precisely, they should have higher aptitude and motivation. And teachers need to be more encouraged and strategic. So, and that's why they need training once again. And those who do not have pre-service education definitely should have sufficient in-service training regarding transforming the pedagogies. So Rural School Teacher 3 says, even though learners learn better if they are given problem-solving tasks, they have very low proficiency in performing the task in English. That's usual because they do not have enough social exposure or parental support or enough trained teacher, or the schools do not provide the necessary resources. So they are pretty unwilling regarding instant problem solving exercises. They are scared of English tasks in class. My students always have excuses for not assigning activities, although they like to work in groups or pairs, since getting peer assistance is easy in that case. So he has not received, this teacher has not received any training and knows how to practice collaborative or communicative teaching techniques needed for effective language learning. He is unsure about language learning aptitudes or self-learning. Criticality in these learners is absurd, according to him. And learners want to be taught more than learning, and they have less pressure from the school board authority. Teacher guides were not provided to transform teaching. So they have power. If they want, if they like to practice transforming, they can do it. And teachers are lazy and often do not teach very actively and purposefully, but they do not have agency. So most teachers avoid transferring training on transformative teaching since they are not monitored or evaluated. They often use student lectures to avoid actively engaging students. Closer monitoring is needed to create pressure on the teachers to ensure learner participation and social collaboration. But learners prefer collaborative language learning. So that means the teachers should have agency, should employ agency, since they do have power and they have that autonomy to use transformation inside the classroom, and they are not much monitored. Since those schools are public and government, and usually less evaluation or less monitoring and less mentorship also. So even 10% of training is neither transferred nor assessed. Instead, management encourages the teachers to teach using hands-on activities. So that's good. And I have no pressure from authority or management about transmitting the lesson for the sake of finishing curriculum. They have power. And it is just a bit stressful to manage everything in a limited class duration, lack of agency. And we have enough space or a supportive environment, but we cannot use all the classrooms for appropriate sitting arrangements, and that is why my transformation attempts were not much successful. So this is environmental limitation, and overall the schools need to support this transformation, and the head teacher should be aware about the necessity of transformation and the benefits of transforming pedagogies. And that's why these teachers have some specific recommendations. They say adding instructions about transforming pedagogies and suggested strategies into the curricula can improve and change the situations by awakening the policymakers and the school authorities. As I said, the authorities need to know. And updating the curricula with more practical language items and discarding additional grammar and literacy lessons could reduce private school teachers' stress and facilitate transformative teaching. Since private school teachers are constantly monitored, and sometimes they are questioned about why the class is so chaotic when they are letting the learners discuss or doing the work by themselves. So public school teachers enjoying little pressure with completing curricula content should be informed about the current TLT practices and encouraged to transfer the new learning, because they do not know what is transforming and why should they transform the pedagogies. The fourth suggestion is incorporating transformation theories into pre and in-service teacher education, as I said, will help by informing the benefits, challenges, and operation, which will ensure the implementation of this pedagogy by the instructors. And at the fifth stage, I'm quoting a respondent's statement: demonstrating the lessons on multimedia helps them to understand the topics by themselves, the learners. And there is an interaction between the content and the learners, while lectures are often one way, hence ensuring technology can be a way of promoting transformation. So that's very important that they need technology and multimedia to make the class transformative. Students might have an alternative interaction between them and the technology presented content, and those who do not have books with them, because since the parents are poor and they cannot always afford the necessary materials along with them. So appointing young, trained, and technology-oriented administrators, heads, or principals would reassure the teachers with the technology access and provide necessary supports in up-to-date pedagogic practices. So very important suggestions, and I think this should be implemented in any non-native context, and particularly the diverse context where teachers have special needs and learners have special language needs. So to conclude the research, I can say the findings demonstrate a big picture of challenges of transforming English language pedagogies in Bangladesh's rural areas. Rural teachers enjoy the power to practice dialogic and interactive teaching, although they lack training and awareness about the pedagogy. However, they cannot transform education burdened with literacy-focused curricula and standardized testing methods. So there are some policy changes to promote transforming teaching and transforming language pedagogies in those settings. That's all from me today, and these are the references that I used for my research. And thank you everyone for hearing me. If you have any questions, you can forward me via following email. And thanks once again for your time.